The movie begins with men approaching a dragon lair. The king orders his men to surround him, but the dragon burns them all, and then approaches the king, who puts his sword in the ground and awaits the dragon. Fast forward many centuries later, we see a girl chopping wood to take to her kingdom. When she sees a carriage approach the castle, she gives all the wood to the poor people and proceeds to meet her father, where a woman covered in red cloak stands, looks at Elodie and says, "She will do," and walks away. Her father tells her there's a proposal for her and she must go for her kingdom as they've offered a lot of gold. Next we see Elodie, Floria, her stepmother and father, Lord Bayford, on a ship en route to the kingdom of Oria, when a horn suddenly blows and the ship enveloped with mist and darkness, and they see big statues of dragon with burning mouths. And then through the ridge the ship enters a bright, beautiful green passage with the most magnificent views, carriages in gold, army of men, and the most exquisite rooms. The Bayfords settle in while the family is at prayer. When they finally meet Prince Henry, who is to marry Elodie, he seems a bit aloof. The father and the queen have their discussions and Bayford comes out with a worried look, but doesn't tell anyone. The stepmother tries to find out what's wrong. When she meets the queen, she treats her like a servant, and she knows something is not right. She runs to Elodie and asks her to call off the wedding, but her father arrives and says there's no need to think. But her stepmother warns her again. In the morning, she starts getting ready for the wedding in the most magnificent ball gown and walks down to the ceremony. She still finds Henry aloof, but brushes it off. Once she said goodbye to her family, Henry takes her to complete the ceremony in the mountains. When she walks up the stony path with petals, she sees people with faces covered in gold masks. She crosses a bridge and looks down to see how deep the fall is. The queen then takes Henry's hands and cuts it deeply, and then she cuts Elodie's. The queen announces the ceremony is now complete, and Henry picks up Elodie and says it's a custom to carry the bride. He asks her to close her eyes and starts walking. Then he says, "I'm sorry." Elodie opens her eyes in horror, and then he flings her down the bridge. Down she goes and faints. When she wakes up, she's hurt, bleeding, and confused. She sees a light and walks toward it. To her horror, it's a bird dying, lit on fire. And then the dragon roars, and a convoy of burning birds flies and falls down like fireworks. The dragon then appears behind Elodie. She cries and runs. The dragon asks her name, and she says Elodie. She asks the dragon what she wants, but the dragon says, "Every generation your kind must pay. I can smell it in your blood." The dragon then says, "Run." She merrily escapes the fire, but she burns her legs. She now starts exploring the caves, looking for a way out. She then sees fluorescently lit cave. She climbs up, and there are icicles. She uses the slugs and makes them into a lamp, but as she's drinking the water, the dragon appears. She runs to the dungeon filled with names of the princesses they've killed and a map to get out alive. Elodie falls asleep, but when she wakes up, she sees the slugs have travelled away and started eating her flesh. But when she removes them, they've healed her leg. She now realizes their magical power. Determined, she follows the maze and gets out, but it's a dead end. She sees some horses and from below hears her father's voice. She climbs back down and comes to a lair and sees 3 red dragons in their shells. She then realizes the dragon asked for 3 princesses because 3 of her daughters were killed. The dragon then captures Elodie's father and demands him to cool her, but the father says no matter what, don't come out. The dragon then kills Elodie's father. She then gets out by using the ropes, and once the dragon realizes she has escaped, she lights the whole valley on fire. The queen sees this and goes to the ship and seizes Elodie's sister Floria as sacrifice. She then cuts both their hands and throws her. Just as Elodie is about to get away, her stepmother finds her and tells her about Floria. So now Elodie must scale the maze again, while the dragon patiently waits for her to come. She sets up some traps for her, but Floria can't move as her leg is hurt. She now picks up a sword, ready to fight the dragon. She tells her she's not of royal blood, and they've been lying to her, but she burns Elodie. Elodie then fights again, and sees a stone which she cleverly uses. The breath of fire on the dragon turns back on her. The dragon then lays and asks Elodie to end her life when she tells her the truth. But instead, Elodie heals her burns from the slug. She then walks back to the castle where there's another wedding going on. She asks the princess to leave and anyone else too. The queen looks at her ridiculously, and then the dragon appears and burns all the castle with the people in it. We then see Elodie, Floria and her mother going happily back to their home on the ship with the dragon flying right beside Elodie.